Florida Pride Parade banned as city bans under 21 attendance only seen behind privacy fences. Governor Ron DeSantis and radical members of the Florida GOP seem to have accomplished what they intended, to divide the LGBTQ+ community and the communities we live in, to make decisions that harm some or all of our community. This weekend, South Florida's Treasure Coast Pride made the dire decision to cancel its LGBTQ+ Pride Parade and restrict its Pridefest events, a decision that came just 72 hours before the festival. The city played a heavy role in decision-making for the Pride nonprofit because of access to city streets and facilities. Both the city and Pride canceled and made changes in anticipation of Governor Ron DeSantis' signing a bill intended to prohibit children from attending drag shows. The parade cancellation may be the first Pride parade cancellation of this type in American history. Pride also changed access to the entire Pride event to adults 21 and older, forced security ID of every guest, and the city facilities hung privacy blackout covers on all fences that surrounded the festival so no one on the outside could see in. I attended the festival and was shocked by what I witnessed. First, on my arrival, all representatives from Treasure Coast Pride, operated as the Pride Alliance of Treasure Coast, told me that all officers and board members had no comment and would not be speaking to me. Approximately 3 hours later, fortunately, Treasure Coast Pride Alliance President Jack Waldroup spoke to me on camera.
Well, what predicated the decision to cancel the parade 2 days before the parade event?
Sure. So a good half of our parade had drag queens in it. And between us and the city, it was determined that we couldn't control the outside and what was being seen or not being seen because it was outside of the perimeter of the actual event space. And so to err on the side of caution, the decision was made by both parties to end the parade and move on with just the event where we could control who was coming in.
So the Pride Alliance, which you're the president of, made the decision that instead of having the parade with no drag queens, you made the decision that there wouldn't be a parade if you had to live in that parameter.
Correct, we did.
You know, there's going to be Pride organizations. We're early in the season. We're coming up on June Pride Month, obviously. Pride organizations around the country that are in states that are affected, like Florida, are going to face these same kind of decisions. As president of Pride Alliance of the Treasure Coast Pride, what would you recommend to those prides around the country that are going to have to face this exact same decision?
Have broad shoulders, because everything's going to be thrown at you as the organization putting on the event, because we have to maintain our 501c3. Just like anybody else does that is a nonprofit organization. Whoever's hosting the event with their liquor license has to maintain their license. So have broad shoulders, work together, don't fight each other. The whole point of Pridefest is to support our community and show our love with each other. And the more we fight against each other, the worse that's going to be. So work with your city, work with the county, still have the Pridefest that you want to have with the exceptions that you have to make, because, you know, us staying inside and hiding is not going to change what's going on. Getting out and showing people, you know what, this may be what's going on, but we still support each other, we still love each other, and we still love everybody. And so it's just important that we continue to do what we need to do.
Waldroup told me they were concerned about that loss of their nonprofit status and that to be, quote, be on the side of caution, end quote. The city and Pride made this decision. As we reported extensively on Queer News Tonight, Florida passed one of the most comprehensive anti-drag, anti-LGBTQ+ bills in history that critics have suggested was designed to be intentionally vague. The legislation, now waiting on the governor's signature, would give the state broad powers to revoke food and beverage licenses from businesses that admit children to those performances. Critics also point out that this may be just the beginning of what the governor wants to accomplish. A source for one Florida Pride organization who wished not to be identified said, quote, like Don't Say Gay, kindergarten as a start is now the 12th grade. Liquor licenses are only a start. This is moving to erase drag queens being seen in public. This is creating fear at every level. To enforce this law, will the governor remove a police chief or even city commissioners or a city's mayor if they don't follow this law? End quote. That fear seems to have happened at Treasure Coast Pride. Shaletta Taylor, drag queen host of the main stage, echoed that concern.
All along the fences, you have to show ID to get in. You have to be at least 21 years old, and they covered all of the fences in black sheer covering, so even if there's children outside, they can't see in what's going on. What do you think about that?
Right, it makes us look like we're doing something bad or doing something dirty in here. We're just living our lives and enjoying a day at a festival like anybody does any other time of the year, whether it's the St. Patrick's Day Festival, Oktoberfest, 4th of July. It's a festival just like any of those. But because there's drag queens and because there's gay people involved, it must look like that we're doing something dirty, and we're not. And it's really insulting because we work very hard to create a family-friendly environment for everybody, and to just be thrown into a category like that and to be, pushed aside and be like, oh, we can't let anybody see in. It makes me feel like we're doing something wrong, and we're not. We're just living our lives and expressing ourselves.
Beyond the cancellation of the parade, the Pridefest had a vibe that did not feel a lot like a celebration. Security forced every person to present an ID. This reporter could not help but think about how trans community members and others that do not wish to be recognized at a Pride festival would react to this new requirement. Additionally, the blackout privacy fence covers were viewed by many in attendance as being designed to prevent anyone seeing a Pride festival was taking place. Business owner Mark Pettit, who had a booth at the Pride Expo, compared this moment to dogs in the pound.
To have those privacy walls put up outside like we are some kind of subhuman type of individual, I don't think that you would do that like to dogs that you were putting into a separate area. At least in like the pound and in a kennel, they can see each other through the chain link. What is so offensive about people who genuinely love each other to have to do that to us?
Yeah. The ramifications of Treasure Coast Pride will have significant impact on the entire LGBTQ+ community. I asked the Treasure Coast Pride president, beyond the issue of a liquor license, if Pride Alliance made the decision to cancel the parade because they would not ban drag queens from the parade. Jack Waldroup's answer was simple: yes. What will other Pride organizations and cities decide to do after the presidential candidate, Ron DeSantis, signs the bill? And what will happen across the country when other conservative GOP-controlled states do the exact same thing? These questions are still to be answered, but not since the Stonewall riots in 1969 have we seen a state of fear and anxiety in the LGBTQ+ community and our relationship with the places we live. Queer News Tonight will be broadcasting 5 special full interviews we did at Treasure Coast Pride, including, as you just saw, Jack Waldroup, president of the Pride Alliance of Treasure Coast, the drag queen perspective from Shaletta Taylor, host of the main stage, parents and family perspective from President Christina Kaiser and Treasurer Celador James from PFLAG, community perspective from Donna Pixley, the Vice President of Sanctuary LGBTQ+ Community Center, and business community perspective from Mark Pettit, owner of Links by Luke, and a religious perspective from Pastor Marianne Kellenbach from Living Faith Church. Their words are going to shock you. Continue to watch this space. It was really a dramatic moment for me to drive up. It was about 90 miles. I had heard we're lucky to have Mark here tonight, having a space in the festival. They canceled the parade 72 hours in advance. It was a collective decision with the city. The city basically said, we don't know what's going to happen yet. Some people have criticized the city and the Pride Alliance for making this decision when they did, but on Tuesday, when this law was signed, or when the law passed, going to the governor, it caught everyone by surprise that the House passed it so quickly. It was scheduled for a vote this week. And basically, Pride Alliance and the city said, well, if the governor signs this in 1 day or 2 days, we'll be in violation of the law, theoretically. Right. And so as a result, they took the preemptive action. He hasn't signed it yet, but our reaction to Pride Alliance and Port St. Lucie would be completely different if he had signed it on Thursday, right, which he might have done. The second thing is interesting to me is every Pride organization, certainly in Florida, and dozens of states around the country that will follow this Florida, Texas, Tennessee model that seems to be the export of hate, will face this exact same thing. And then we're faced with the decision that the city of Port St. Lucie and the Pride Alliance at the Treasure Coast Pride, do you include drag queens? Do you allow trans representation that could be liberally defined by this law to participate? And if you do, you're in violation of the law, or you reject them, which seems to me that's exactly what's intended by the vagueness of this law.
It's really a template of terror. That's what comes to my mind. And it's interesting because we're just coming off the heels of Miami Beach Pride, which lasted a full 17 days. And I sang at the opening myself, and then I attended many of the events, the VIP, and we were in the parade. The church where I work, Unity on the Bay, we were in the parade. And it did still have even though this stuff is in the air and has been all around us for a long time, it still felt very celebratory, and it felt very free and open and loving and wonderful. And so this was such an odd juxtaposition, this happening so quickly, based on what you just said about the law passing so quickly. It's really terrifying.
Well, and how many times have we said around this table and other shows on Happening Out that something against drag queens is really just going to lead to something bigger? Because when it comes to the L, you've got lesbians who do drag as kings. You've got the G in there with most of the queens. You've got every single letter is represented. So you can't just say that this is something against drag. It was an absolutely dehumanizing experience.
I talked to so many people at the festival. I did these 6 big interviews. The interviews that you're going to see were between 5 and 10 minutes, each one of them, and all coming from different perspectives of what was going on. One of the most disturbing things, I said this to Mark and his husband Luke on Saturday, as they were participating in the business expo of the Pridefest. This is a Pride festival that is completely different than anything that I had ever been to before, because it had this heavy cloud on top of it. It was just palpable of what was going on. And some people tried to explain away the black covering of the fences, but at the end of the day, the visual, we showed you some pictures here of the IDs that are being required. Every single person, we want to know who you are. Now, it's an age requirement, but still, for the trans community and those that are closeted, that is a triggering event. It's designed to chill.
It's shaming.
And shaming. And I thought the Queen's observation of it makes us feel like we're doing something dirty, and it's just...
And it's the exact opposite of what Pride is really all about, which is being out, open, loud, and proud.
I think we're one step away from show us your papers. I did not know about the black curtain prior to seeing the video, and maybe it's just me because I am paranoid in my old age, but I can't, you brought up the dog pound thing. I kept thinking, death camps, because they're heading in that direction. Right. I mean, I need to start wearing this. I have a silence equals death pin with the pink triangle, right, which is what Hitler used to mark the gays in the camps. We're a lot, in my opinion, we're a lot closer to that than I think any of us want to admit. And, I also think at some point, and I actually heard a lesbian make this point, the last foreseeable past, you know, Pride's been a celebration and it's been wonderful, but I think we need to start shifting our thoughts to less drinking and more protesting, because, you know, my button says it, silence equals death.
I think it's important to point out they're trying to do 21 and over. So you can be 18 and vote and go die for your country, but you can't go see a drag show? I mean, that's just ridiculous. How asinine is that? I think that our Pride events need to do something bigger, though. It's more important now than ever that we actually use social media to get this message out there in a loving, encouraging way, so those who cannot attend our events see that we are doing something honorable and exciting, that they have other ways to participate. Of course, there are going to be restrictions, but that gives us the social responsibility to be more creative so people can actually watch us show our pride and hopefully not become targets.
You know, one last production to help me with the clock. I'm having trouble with my clock. I do want to voice support for Jack Waldroup. You could see in that interview, that's a 10-minute interview that I did, and that was just a snippet of the interview. The weight of the world, literally, in this little community in South Florida, but in a more rural. It's not Broward County, it's not Miami-Dade County, it's not Palm Beach County. The weight on him.
He was poised and collected. He was great.
It was. I just have to voice support because he has been so criticized. And until you walk in those shoes under the pressure of the governor and the GOP and the city saying, this is what you got to do, you got to do, you got to do on this kind of crisis decision making, you just don't realize how difficult it is for a volunteer in a situation like this. And honestly, I think Pride Alliance did the best they could in this situation, faced with what the city and what the state is saying you can do.
And they didn't hide.
And they
did not
they ultimately, you know, and this story, the reason why we include this in the story is when I arrived and everybody said, wait, it's out from Queer News Tonight, no comment, no comment, no comment. And there is ultimately comment. Good for Pride Alliance and good for Jack Waldroup for doing that. And one of the other questions that I asked Jack is to all the LGBT that are listening to you and watching this event, we're going to show you a little clip of what he said everyone should do now.
Jack, you're the president of the Pride Alliance of Treasure Coast Pride. What would you recommend to average front and center LGBT? What should we be doing now?
Get out and vote. You know, especially in Florida, we have the GOP is made this change, and if everyone gets out and votes their opinions and gets their word and their thoughts out there, then we can make a difference.
LGBTQ plus news is vital for our community and for the broader world as a whole. We have enough enemies at Fox News. Tucker, Sean, and Laura are loud. We need passionate allies. Happening Out television network, Queer News Tonight, and It's Happening Out are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. Our community needs your support. Like this broadcast and subscribe now to ensure the growth of the entire LGBTQ plus community.